Welcome to the Professional Priestess Podcast, the place where medicine carriers learn to hold wealth, visibility, and devotion without contraction. Together, let's part the veil and meet the humans behind the magic. Speak to the oracles walking their divine path of service, and the alchemists transmuting density into divinity, all while navigating a very human experience. Together, we will explore shadows and sovereignty, sex and spirit. We will go deep into your soulpreneur business as initiation and visibility as reclamation. I'm your host, Lindsay Schroeder, professional priestess and spiritual mentor for leaders, healers, and those called to take their place at the forefront of the feminine revolution. Every episode is a transmission, every conversation an activation. Welcome to Season 2. This is your invitation to remembrance. Ava, thank you so much for being on the show. I am so excited to have you here. And we started chatting and I was like, oh my God, we got to start recording because I want everybody to hear this. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for bringing your gifts here. I am personally and professionally and podcast very excited for this conversation with you. So welcome.
Yeah, likewise. I'm excited as well. And it's so funny how that works when you just start riffing at the beginning and it's like, wait, we need
Yeah.
to actually hit record.
Yes. I'm like, they're going to miss out on this. And
Yeah.
I had originally started with telling you that I love the piece of your intake that mentioned that there is this possibility for those of us who are spiritual practitioners and light workers and offerers of services and oracles and seers and seekers to love the business aspect as much as the actual providing of the service. And we hear that so often of like, oh, I don't want to do the marketing, or I don't want to do the social media, oh, I don't want to do these pieces that are separate. You can think of them as separate from the actually offering my magic. And that line lit up so much. And we started talking into the difference between business now and business during COVID. And I had mentioned that I had started full time a little bit before COVID, and we were going to get into those questions. And I just would really love to share with everyone your magic and how you're like, oh, this is important, and let's talk about this and how we weave things together. Because as much as I want to pull the veil back and share with people the behind the scenes of the service, to be this thing, to be a priestess in the modern day and age is more than just providing the service. And that is a beautiful thing, but it's also a double-edged sword, like most of the things in life and in this space. If you don't have a relationship with it, if you don't love it, if it doesn't light you up like your service lights you up, it can become so hard. And when it turns into this thing that you have to move through, that you're forced to do, that is just a requirement, you see that permeate into the entirety of your business. So I'm excited for someone to enter this conversation feeling like yes, 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 and at the end feeling a little bit different about it. So let's talk about the difference between these type of businesses and these types of services pre-COVID, during COVID, and now with an entirely shifted landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just before we go into this conversation, because what I have come to experience over the 10 years that I have been in my own business, but also working with different healers and priestesses, is that sometimes when we start to go down this path, there can be a wall come up and a little bit of resistance of, oh no, I don't want to go there. I hate talking about these topics. I just want to outsource and have somebody else do it for me. And so I just ask that everyone listening have a open mind and an open heart, because what I have come to find is that when we actually begin to master these other elements of running a spiritual business or running a healing business, it actually amplifies all of the work that we're doing in our service as facilitators and as space holders, because there is no better feeling than being a baddie in business. It is a very substantial shift to your energy that actually makes you show up so much more powerfully as a facilitator and as a space holder, because you don't have these energy leaks around different areas of your business that ultimately have to be done if you want to create a profitable business where you are financially resourced and therefore have an abundant energy that you're able to give back to others. So I just ask for an open mind and an open heart, and for this conversation to shift anybody that is listening and create a new relationship that feels more exciting and feels actually like an extension of the service itself.
I Could not agree more, and yet that's said in such a different way than the way that I've, like, spoken to that feeling, and, like, how much money and success in business in this dimension, in this reality, is a way that we understand so many other things, and I think there's a lot of those of us, and I've been this person, graduating from this first level of spirituality and first level of spiritual teaching into a second level, and like we're almost taught, we're almost programmed for the positive and the negative to like bypass money. And I think that is such a like it's an anchor that holds you back, that holds you down, that keeps you small. And I really believe that there is an intention in that to try and keep the healers, the feminine leaders, those of us who are truly here to shift the collective. If you are not resourced, if you are shying away from the money, if you are falling into the broke healer curse of like, oh, I should just give my gifts away for free because it's a spiritual service, your impact is limited. And so I see that in the like extension of your energy body, like you're talking about the facilitation, and it is the self through the business. I mean, I'm gonna guess that you would agree that soulpreneurship is like the grandest self-development inner work experience of all things. Like you cannot hide from any piece of yourself or your service or your energy or your subconscious or your somatics. Like you cannot hide from it. It shows up in your everything, both in the service, but in your business, on your website, in the energy field of all of these things. So I think that was so not only beautifully said, but said in such a different way that I'm like, I'm looking at it from a different perspective and seeing an even fuller picture of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I think at the end of the day, it's like if we're bypassing important areas of our business, like systems, or looking at our money, I cannot tell you the amount of women that come into my world who have no idea how much they made last month. They don't have any idea about their expenses of what's coming in or what's going out. And to me, no wonder we feel like, "Who am I to hold more? Can I
Yeah.
really do this?" If we aren't looking at the full picture, don't fully understand the picture. If we are confused in any area of our business or feel less than or lack that confidence, we are going to have blocks in the way of us showing up and taking up more space and creating the impact that we truly desire to have. So, I always love to start conversations like that because I think that it's important that that relationship shift happens if we want to make the impact that we desire, if we want to make the money that we desire, and if we want to have the freedom that we desire as well too.
Yeah. So I'm seeing these two pieces of like looking at both the like visual of looking at your bank account, of seeing like, okay, what is actually like sitting in here? What is available? What do I have? But then also that like, what are my typical every month expenses? Are anything coming up this month that doesn't come up typically? And then what do I have like scheduled to come in? What do I know is for sure coming in? What's on that more like passive revenue side or on reoccurring payment side or anybody who's on a program versus what you're planning on like offering this month. Is there anything else that you have on that little list of like, this is just what you do either every day or every month as it pertains to just kind of like seeing clearly? And I think phrasing it in that way of like, let's look at it not just with our human eyes, but let's look at it with that first or third eye as well. And just have an overview of what's going on, of being able, when we scan an individual, we're not going like, oh, mindset's really strong. So I'm only going to look at like this part. You're not going to skip over the somatics. You're not going to skip over the energy body. And I think translating that in that way has really not only helped me, but so many of my clients who are leaning towards that. I love the service, but not the business. I just want to like do the work. And I'm like, if we just shift how you see it, if looking at your business and the bank account part is like looking at the mind, looking at the headspace, you're not going to skip that and just look at the somatics and the energetics. So, is there a few more that you would add to that list of just like kind of taking in that general overview of your business's health?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this kind of actually goes back to your initial question around like business then versus business now, because I know I started kind of going down another tangent, but it all kind of as in any conversation with two beautiful
Yeah.
spiritual ladies. It all weaves together.
Yep.
So yes, on the money side of things, I'm looking at cash in, I'm looking at cash out. I look at monthly recurring revenue, cash flow in terms of my expenses. And every morning I have a date with my money to see how much money has actually come in. And then from there, based off of understanding the percentages of my expenses, I move money into different accounts. So I know the exact percentage on a monthly basis of how much I'm spending on contractors. I know the exact percentage of how much I spend on ads. I know the exact percentage that I am putting towards my own investments or my own savings or paying myself as the owner of the business. And having an understanding, and this is very simple, I would recommend everyone do this, especially because we're at the end of the year, so that you can have really just be a safe steward of money in 2026. I would look at all of your expenses from 2025 and get the categorizations of every single different expense to a place where you can see the average percentage of each expense category. So, how much are you spending on contractors? How much, if you are an in-person facilitator, are you spending on rent or any like office supplies or office expenses? How much are you spending on advertising or marketing? How much are you paying yourself? So, let's say you know that you spend about 10% on contractors for the year. Your office rent was about 20%. You want to pay yourself about 30%. You've got your taxes set aside as well. That's going to be 15%. Then when you've got the $10,000 coming in, you know that 1,000 of that is going to go into one account. 3,000 of that is going to go towards you. And so it just makes it very, very clean when you have a system with your money. And it's my opinion that money loves safety and money loves having a responsibility and a direction. And when you have both of those pieces together, you will actually make more money. So that's what I would look at from like the financial side of things. And then the other thing that I think is really important, and this is how we're going to tie back to what works versus what doesn't work, is when you are birthing a new offering into life and when you start to receive new clients, I want you to know where those clients are coming from. And I think a lot of people will just be like, I had this amazing launch and, 20 people signed up for my group, but they don't know where they came from and it's not tracked. And so maybe some of those people came from email. Maybe some of those people came from stories. Maybe some of those people came from a podcast you were on. But if you don't actually know where they came from, then you don't know what to double down on. You don't know what you're wasting your time on versus what's actually moving the needle forward. And so on a monthly basis, my team and I will look at all of the sales that came in and we know exactly where those people came. So I know if it's from this lead magnet or that lead magnet. I know if it's from this specific ad or this specific ad. I know if it's from a specific Instagram post, right? Like we use unique keywords as call to actions for every single Instagram post rather than the same one every single time, because then
Mm.
I know, oh, this Instagram reel that spoke about this specific topic is what resonates with my audience and is actually getting people to reach out. And so I think there was a time when, as you were saying earlier, you could kind of
Yep.
just like sneeze into a tissue and people are like, let's go, I'm ready,
Yes.
pay in full, no
Yeah.
questions asked. And the reality is, since the world has opened back up, not only are we dealing with a vastly different economy than we were back in 2020, but there are way more facilitators out here than there were 5 years ago. And so it's not that there is I actually don't believe in saturation because I believe that when your messaging and your positioning is so dialed in, you can really position yourself as a category of one leader, as Leanne Lopez Mosley would say. And in being that, not feel like you're competing with or blending in with every other person in your industry. Um, but buyer discernment is higher than ever now. And so you can't just throw spaghetti at the walls to see what sticks. You have to have like a magnifying glass up to understand what's working in your business versus what's not working. And I'll give you a perfect example. So I started running ads back in 2020, the first round that I launched of the Academy of Breath, which is my 12-week breathwork and meditation certification. And at the time, I maybe threw like $1,000 at it, and I didn't have any of the tracking set up, so I had no idea if the ads worked. The
Mm,
ads the
yeah,
ads definitely worked, I just wasn't tracking anything, and
yeah,
so I was making emotional decisions in my business rather than making decisions based off of data, which I think is really important if you are wanting to scale. Yes, your heart, yes, your third eye, yes, your intuition is so important, but when we're getting to this age where buyer discernment is an all-time high. There are more people in the industry. There are a lot of people who have been burnt by past coaches. You need to understand what works and what doesn't work in your business. So now we track everything meticulously. I know who came from an ad versus who didn't. And so I'm able to make decisions again and double down on what's working versus just kind of throwing my energy everywhere and then being exhausted and feeling really frustrated because it doesn't feel like it's working.
yes. Now, you mentioned a little bit about, I'm assuming something like a mini chat where you're having people comment a certain thing. So you can always, if that's the person that signs up, you can go back into your like Instagram conversation with them, see which word they used at the beginning that did that automatic population. For someone who's like, I am overwhelmed with everything that you just said. Will you explain a little bit more about that specific response from people and how you track from an ad? Because you're mentioning like when you first started, you put money towards ads. Obviously, you probably saw an influx of clients coming in, but which ad and what was I talking about? And did it do something else? And how long did it take? And like, how do you, at a very like basic level, start to look at those things when you're not a data person, when you're not coming from like a tech background or a systems background and expanding into like offering practice, when you are truly one of those spiritual baddies who's like, I am in the liminal space. I can do all of these practices. And yet the business technical side, I'm almost wanting to like really put a star on those two things of like being able to see what someone's responding to, especially on social media with those tracking type drop a whatever or send me a this and getting a response. And then what do you mean in a very like practical sense of like looking at the data from the ads?
Yeah. So what I'll say is this, you actually don't need to do this with ads. If you're in a position where you're actually like, ads overwhelm the F out of me, there's no way that I'm going to do this. Don't worry. This does not mean that you can't incorporate this strategy and this level of, analytics into your current process because this also should be working on an organic level as well. So I'll start with just the organic because I think that's a kind of a bigger pool in terms
Yeah.
of your listenership. So very, very simply, I think if you scroll on any healer's page, you're going to see them say like DM me evolve or DM me mentorship to learn more, comment blank below. And I think it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do, right? Like we see certain people doing that and we're like, okay, cool. So I'm just going to go and do that without actually understanding how to leverage that specific strategy in a way that is not only going to obviously bring you leads, but on top of that is going to help you understand like what is the content that really resonates with my audience. So what I would suggest everyone do moving forward when you are showing up on social media, whether it's your Instagram stories or it's your in-feed posts, is if you're talking about your offering, for each unique post, you want to have a unique keyword because then I know if on my post where I'm talking about helping facilitators transition away from one-to-one single sessions into a more scalable high ticket offer, if I say DM me scale, then I know that that piece of content resonates and that specific desire or that specific pain point that I hit on is the thing that's getting my audience to move. And then the next post, I might do a different keyword. And so for those of you that are like, okay, well, how do I actually track this? It can literally be as simple as creating a spreadsheet of when leads have come through. And you can say, okay, so Lindsay reached out to me with the keyword podcast. And so that means that my podcast lead magnet is one of the higher performing either angles that I am putting out into the world from a positioning perspective, or call to actions. And so I can just have a spreadsheet where if anybody DMs that specific keyword or any specific keyword, I'm going to put them on that spreadsheet. From there, the next step is okay, not just the people that responded, but who are the people that booked a discovery call?
Yeah.
Or who are the people that actually closed? So then I can see, okay, maybe podcasts got a lot of excitement and a lot of people responding, but and scale maybe only had a handful of people
Yeah.
respond. But the people that responded to scale, those are the people that actually turned into clients. And so then you can kind of see, right? It's not just about the quantity of people responding, it's also the quality. So that's just one example of like a very simple way that you can do it without needing to really set up like any systems on the back
Yeah.
end. But as you mentioned, ManyChat is a really great tool that you can use because you can basically create a campaign for each of those different keywords. And then you have in an actual database all of those people essentially being automated into that database. So you can see username, keyword, and then you would just basically be able to see on your end, okay, of those people, how many people ended up booking a call or how many people ended up closing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, that's so I feel like I'm like patting myself on the back. I don't do a specific keyword for each post, but I do them kind of in like topic clusters because that was
Mm,
one of the things that I really shifted with TikTok in particular is one of the things that I personally got irritated with is I would see someone's piece of content and it would be not just a oh I like that but like oh I like that and I would like go to their page and it takes you to the one that you just watched and then nothing around it would be around anything like that. And I'm like, okay, so I love this piece of content and I would have watched more and like get to know who you are and maybe like consider following you or like taking an additional step. But the pieces of content right before it, the pieces of content right after it, the pieces of content that are pinned at the top have nothing to do with the one thing that I was interested in. So I
mhm.
started to like cluster content where like maybe the 5 or 10 posts around here are all around the same topic. So I've connected my keywords with like my topic. For instance, one of my topics right now that I'm talking a lot about is aloneness versus loneliness. And as a practitioner, you need a lot of aloneness to like connect with what you're connecting to clean the channel. But so many of us struggle with loneliness because we are not surrounded by others who can have this type of conversation in the many facets of like, what does it mean to like take on a bunch of other people's energy and have to like clean that off after your retreat and trying to have that conversation with your partner or with a friend or with a family member at a holiday dinner is not the same as having these people who can really hold you in this fullness, whether that's collaborative friends or whether that's actually like a mentor, a leader, being able to have conversations like this. So I've like been doing my keywords with like the cluster of the topic. And now I'm like, okay, next layer when you get into that, like, okay, having a program actually do it for you. So I'm not like hand doing it and then going back when someone signs up and like connecting the dots would make sense to do a specific one for each and everyone to have it like so clean. I
Yeah,
love that,
yeah,
seeing, like,
and
stages.
yeah, and you can use, a tool like Zapier to connect your Instagram directly to the spreadsheet so that
Mm,
when somebody sends you a message, every single DM of, like, a new message comes through so you can see what the keyword was that came through. I mean, that's where I started. It was just a zap to a Google spreadsheet, and then on a weekly basis, I'd go in and I'd look at, okay, what was the quality of that person on a scale of
yeah,
1 to 5 from the perspective of, like, 5 being, like, perfect ideal client avatar, 1 being, "This is probably someone pitching me in my
yeah,
DMs," and, we all know those,
mhm,
and, just doing a reflection at the end of every week and seeing because, again, I think a part of the reason why so many people get frustrated with showing up on social media, creating content, all of the like marketing side of things is that they just simply don't know what works and what's moving the needle forward. And when you do understand that, then you can really just I think you can simplify the process, right? Like there was a time, and Lindsay, you were probably in the same boat as well too, where it was like, you must post every single day. And if you don't, you are irrelevant. And now you don't have to post every single freaking day. Like you can be in your service and in fulfillment the majority of the time when you've got these systems in place, because then the 3 pieces of content per week are 1,000 times more impactful because you're speaking to your ideal client, you're addressing the things that you know that resonate, and that piece of content is moving people to actually purchase.
Yeah, I think being able to define what does moving the needle forward look like, because I think so many of us, and I'm going to say us because like this is still something that like I personally struggle with, the difference between, oh, what's exciting, what lights me up, what's like, oh, I just got out of a conversation with one of my magical mentees and I want to talk about this, versus the difference between, okay, my social media platform is not just my podcast where I'm like talking about the things that I want to talk about and having these great conversations, really seeing it as this marketing mouthpiece and knowing that like when people come to my page, if they're having the experience like what I just described of like, oh, I really liked that. And now I'm frustrated because I'm not able to consume what it is that I'm looking for, or I don't understand. I think that you are this type of practitioner or service provider. And then I get there and then it's this, with it being so saturated, like you're saying, to get to this place of like you are the authority in the one particular area that you're in, it takes a lot of self clarity. And it also takes that like consistent reflection back to the self of like, okay, I might feel very clear about who and what I am to myself, but someone who's never heard from me before, someone who's never been to my page, someone who maybe for me doesn't know what the fuck a priestess does. Like when I started with just like coaching, and at the beginning, especially, that was like shiny and new and not everybody was doing it. And I didn't have to explain what that word meant, what the service was. I was talking about like, okay, how much are you paying for this? How many calls? How long is the container? And now that is not even remotely a consideration for so
Yeah.
many people. And so like literally the entire landscape has shifted in so many ways. And I'm very excited to hear your very technically backed and very like business sound, but with the understanding of these practices and like that ability to translate for someone who is much more on the end of service, who's like, okay, sometimes I swing my pendulum out to the business, but to be able to balance in a better way and to, I'm I'm loving the like love the business as much as your service, and
Mhm.
knowing just hearing it a couple times, guys, that like it is possible to love those types of things, like having that auto populated little Google sheet that all of a sudden tells you this topic that changes everything. Talk a little bit more about that. Going from posting 3 times a day to posting 3 times a week and getting more high quality leads coming in. Like I think most of the people listening would be like, "Oh, yeah, I would fall in love with it if that was the situation," and
Right.
we're really breaking it down in a way that I haven't heard, especially in the episodes of the podcast of like, here's one way to do it, and then here's a little graduation, and then here's a little graduation, and like, start where you are, start where you can, and like, fall in love at that new level, and then move when you're ready.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that, having those aha moments and those breakthroughs, again, coming back to what I was saying, it breeds so much confidence and so much excitement. There was a point where when I started my breathwork certification, I was like, pretty straightforward, y'all. Get certified as a breathwork facilitator, change your life, understand somatics, like start a career in the wellness space. And there's this saying, you want to sell the beach, not the plane ticket. And I think that's where a lot of facilitators get caught up is like, shouldn't people just be excited about breath work? Shouldn't people just be excited about, working with the Akashic? Shouldn't people just be excited about Reiki? Like, isn't that enough? And it's not. Like, people, I always make this joke, like, people don't give a shit about the modality. That's why coffee enemas and colonics exist, Like, people will literally put coffee up their ass because that means that they're going to have a stronger digestion. They're going to feel more energy. They're going to feel lighter. They're going to get those parasites out that have been making them feel bloated or having the brain fog. People don't care about the modality. They care about the end result and they care about the transformation. And I see a lot of facilitators getting left behind because they're still trying to push, like, here's why nervous system regulation is important. And like, it's just being able, and this is the work that I do with so many of my clients, because, I'm a wellness facilitator and wellness business coach for spiritual leaders and wellness leaders. Like, this is my niche, this is my zone of genius. I've been in this space for 10 years. I started as a yoga teacher. I started as a breathwork facilitator. I started in the shoes of all of my clients, and my business has evolved over the years as I've built successful wellness businesses because I understand what works versus what doesn't work. And the number one thing is getting stuck in the intangible, as you were saying, without being able to translate it into the tangible and what it actually means for somebody to come into a spiritual reading with you, how it's going to shift their life, the ripple effect that it's going to have, and how it's going to solve their highest value problems or their highest value desires, which makes it a no-brainer for them to say yes and invest at a premium price point as well.
I would love to break that down a little bit for somebody who, like, maybe we pick like two avatars, obviously. Like, I would love to be one of them. And then someone who's like providing a service, like you mentioned Reiki, you mentioned Akasha, you mentioned the somatics. If someone is going, holy shit, I'm years into my business and I still don't understand how to get from that intangible place. Like, I'm always saying things like it's just so hard to describe, or my personal favorite that I like, the hill that I die on so often. It's so particular to each person. And it's like,
Mhm.
these are true things. Like, I'm not saying that these are not true things. Like, the thing that I do in my service is so intangible. It's not something that I can grab. It's not something that I can show someone else. And it is so unique to everyone else. And yet that static point of like, I can't get past this is not only leaving so much money on the table, but there are so many soulmate clients out there who desire to work with you. You specifically, your unique modality, your background, the way that you say it. Like, I can't tell you guys how many times people have started working with me and like will stop me in the middle of a call and be like, I love that you swear so much. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I fucking know. Because I keep it everywhere. Whereas, like, the first time I worked with an ads agency, they were like, "We should take that out." And I was like, "No, because if we take it out now and someone shows up who appreciates that it's not there and they get on an actual call with me in a true program, they're not gonna like it." And so, like, I need to repel the wrong clients as much as I need to pull in the soulmate client. So if you have somebody who's going, I don't know how to go from, what I do is take you into the Akasha and we look at your many lives, or as a priestess, we do a priestess service that's like outside of time and space and is the healing that you need to make these big change. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything to anybody. And I really love what you're saying about colonics, because like there is no truer example of like, it does not matter what it is, it only matters what the result is. Because there are so many people who are like, oh, I would never talk about those topics. I would never like be interested. And yet when you describe all the thing that coffee colonic does, they're like, "Oh yeah, here's my money, take it." How do you start to break it down into a digestible experience when you're like, what I do is really intangible. It is very spiritual. It is very third eye based. It does change your life, but it's so different for everyone else. How do you start to like help somebody go from it being up here to like something that they can work with, someplace that they can start and start building that muscle? Because it is a muscle. It's one that you use regularly, not just, oh, I got my Instagram bio done. I'm never going to change it again. And we're good to go for another 10 years of business.
Yeah, so this is gonna be the really unsexy answer that is probably gonna get some eye rolls, but it is foundational. You have to understand who your ideal client is. You have to. And I think a lot of people don't want to niche down, but here's the reality of what a niche is. A niche is a marketing tool. A niche is not a business model, right? It's not the box that you feel like you're putting yourself into because you're only speaking to that one person. My High Ticket Coach Academy is a perfect example. All of our ads for the High Ticket Coach Academy speak to breathwork facilitators. We say, if you are a breathwork facilitator and you want to build a six-figure wellness business, we're going to support you with this, right? And I would say about 15% of my clients are breathwork facilitators. And the reason being is that somebody sees the messaging around you want to build a six-figure business. You're burnt out by one-to-one sessions. You want a scalable business model. You want to run retreats. Every other coach and facilitator sees that and says, well, I might not be a breathwork facilitator, but I want all of those end results. So I'm going to reach out to Ava and I'm going to hire her. So the first thing that we have to remember is a niche is a marketing tool. It's not a box that you're putting yourself into. It's going to help you get clarity on how to actually speak to those true desires and those subconscious motivators of the person that you are here to serve. So step number one, identify who your ideal client is. From there, I have a really fun exercise that I do with my clients, which is the drunk confessional. Essentially, rather than thinking about what you think your client is saying, right? So we were joking at our Tulum mastermind over the weekend with all of my top performing clients. Um, no one is going to their boyfriend and being like, God, I just really wish that I could have more elevated conversations with my clients. Like, I just really want more elevated conversations. No, they're saying, I feel like the clients I'm working with right now are just like kind of an outdated model of like who I was working with in the beginning, and I'm tired of these conversations. I feel like I've described how to create an intuitive practice a million times and I just don't want to be having those conversations anymore. I really wish that I could work with the woman who already knows how to tap into her intuition and she's just excited to, learn more spiritual practices that she can incorporate to potentially quit that job that she's absolutely fucking miserable at and step into a healing career. Like that's how she's speaking. And so
Yeah.
we'll do this drunken confessional exercise where it's like if she was at brunch with her bestie, she had her second margarita. Her lips are a little bit looser than they were at the beginning of the brunch. What is it that she would really say? Because that's then going to tell you how to speak to her.
Mm. It's so funny. I use the I'm a racehorse who's on the pony ride circuit when I'm describing that same situation where I'm like, it's not that I don't love giving a little kid a ride and like this is the most magical experience, but like I'm a racehorse and I want to run like a racehorse. I want to be working at those high levels of like my capacity and my capability and being presented with new things. And so, once again, Ava, like how you describe things, it's from this other perspective. We're both looking at the same piece of art, but I'm like, oh, yeah, I've never stood in that corner and I've never looked at it in that way. And it completes this picture with so much of like my own practice with my own self. Because for me, my ideal client is in three spaces. And anytime I say that to like a marketing coach or this or that, they're like, pick one. Like, who, if you could see those three soulmate clients in front of you, who would you pick? Who would you wanna work with? And I'm like, "All 3." And hearing it in that way, I'm like, as a marketing vehicle versus me going, "No, I don't wanna be boxed into only this. I don't wanna be boxed into only this. I don't wanna be boxed" like, I love working with all of them. It just reframes why we're doing it and how we're doing it and what the purpose of it is. That it's like a mantra. It's the mind vehicle to get to only 15% of breathwork people coming in and all the rest are just, oh, I resonate vibrationally with all of that and I want those things. And I, as my intelligent, gifted, connected, aligned self, understand that you don't mean if I'm not a breathwork facilitator, I can't benefit from this. And I think that like backing into the client is so intelligent, is so capable, the niche doesn't become handcuffs. It becomes a pedestal where it's like, okay, now you guys can see it. Like, let me lift it up above other things. You can see it and bring in those right people. So I really appreciate not just the way that you say that, but the explanation and like the additional steps underneath. I think that's really going to click some resistance pieces away for people and feel like those things falling away and shedding. I'm truly gonna go look at, like, all of the work that I have around, like, what is my niche and who is my soulmate client in a different way, considering that it's a vehicle and, like, can be the pedestal that allows people to see it from further away.
Yeah, and I think just 2 other things that you can play with as well, since you've got those 3 archetypes that you're working with, is the first piece is there are common denominators between all 3 of those, and that's one way that you can speak to all 3 women or all 3 archetypes, because you might have, like, the mother, the new spiritual coach, the woman that is moving through grief, let's say, but there's common denominators underneath all of them, and those are your content pillars because it's going to speak to all 3 of them. And then the other piece of it is when you see those 3 different archetypes, not that there is a, not that there is a one of them is better or worse than the other, but what is the highest level? Because any of the people that might be like the other 2 might not necessarily be at that level, but when they see you talking to that person, the intelligent archetype is going to look at that and be like, "Well, I may not be that now, but I do want that, so I want to be in this room."
Yes. Yeah. Ah, I love that. And like I've heard that in so many ways, but when we like laid the foundational groundwork before addressing that, it just feels so much more possible. And those of us who are working in these intangible spaces, we know how much the like, is it possible in your own mind? Is it a belief that's limiting you, holding you, or allowing for you? Is the runway or the like stall out? And so like that's a big shift for me. I'm like, okay, let's write that one down. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have I should have known that after this call, I would need, like, a little hour to go through all of my stuff and, like, implement and put pieces in there. I'm excited for the content that'll come out this week with all of these, like, little reframes and shifts, and I also think it's really potent for spiritual practitioners to know that, like, sometimes these are, like, 1-degree shifts. Sometimes it isn't a, like, "Oh, we have to burn everything down," or nothing that you put out is, like, working even when it feels like nothing's working. Sometimes it is that like 1-degree shift or that like,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna study that or I'm gonna follow through on this or I'm gonna like look at the data on this thing. And it makes such a big difference for the business itself.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of this. I love storytelling and giving examples because I feel like it's just so much more expansive than us kind of talking about it as this concept. You know, when I started the Academy of Breath back in 2020, I think there was only one other breathwork certification online. I was very much like horse blinders on, stay in my lane. So I didn't do much research of like who else is out there? Like what else could someone be signing up for? I just had the idea, went with it, and it's been a massive success. But as breathwork has grown in popularity, I mean, you could literally throw a rock and you're going to hit a breathwork facilitator or a breathwork teacher training. And so in 2020, we, had just an insane start with our launches and how many people were signing up for each round of the certification. But as 2024 came along, again, I was still leaning on marketing from 2020 and wondering why we weren't getting as many sales. So last year, I did start doing research and I started looking at, what are these certifications offering and what is my unique selling point? And one of the most unique aspects of the Academy of Breath is that we don't just train you in how to become a breathwork facilitator. I also give you an extensive amount of support on the business side so that you can create your first offers, understand how to price high ticket, leverage social media to be able to expand your reach beyond your immediate audience and be able to actually build out an offer ecosystem. No other certifications are doing that because they're just true certifications teaching the art of facilitation. So, about a year and a half ago, I decided instead of marketing this as a breathwork certification, I'm going to shift my messaging to focus on our unique selling point. And within doing that, we went from having about 2 to 3 signups a month because it turned into an evergreen program at that point, um, to 20 to 25 women signing up every single month because we were focusing on the messaging of, yes, you're gonna get certified, but you're also going to get these non-negotiable skills of being able to create a profitable business so that at the end of your certification, you're not just standing with this like certificate in hand asking yourself, what the hell do I do from here? Which is the conversation that I heard over and over and over. But you know, step by step, how to get your first clients, how to start making money in your business. And it was wild the shift that we had, which really came down to messaging, right? Because again, then we started continuing to attract people that wanted the certification, but we started attracting breathwork facilitators who had just finished their certification and were like, well, I don't even know how to get a client, so I need to work with you. And you obviously understand the breathwork industry, so I'm going to hire you. So again, it's that 1 degree shift where I didn't change the certification. I didn't burn the business to the ground. I didn't even have to start marketing in different places. I just changed the angle in which I was presenting the offer itself.
Mm. How does someone look at what they have and consider what is that differentiator? So somebody's going, okay, I am one of those many breathwork facilitator. I am a somatic practitioner. I am maybe in the regulation space. These pieces that, and we'll bring it back to, at the beginning of COVID, the differentiator was I'm a spiritual practitioner and this is new. And like that was new and shiny and exciting. And people had more time and availability than ever before. And like everybody was trying everything. And now you look to your left and you look to your right, and you're like, there are spiritual practitioners everywhere. There are online coaches everywhere. And as we've already mentioned, there are so many people that are really good at sales and marketing who do not have the chops to back it up. And so people have been really burned in this like false advertisement of there are so many of us saying like, hey, I can get you magical, insane, miraculous, like change the trajectory of your life results through these spiritual practices. And there are some of us who can really deliver on that. There are some of us who could really deliver, but don't know how to call in the right clients. So they're calling in clients that are not aligned, and then they're not able to get those results for the not aligned clients. Then it's like part and part. And then there are others who just full well know I know how to market and I know that people are buying this stuff. So I'm marketing this and I'm selling it, and then people are falling off or asking for refunds or getting burned or just like, having to go through it and be like, oh, it's me. Like I'm the problem. And I've talked to people across the board. So help us in that area. How do you look at sometimes years worth of work and your own growth and go, what is my differentiator? How do I
Mhm.
s- do the exact same thing like you're doing? Like I was selling the same thing, and yet this 1 degree shift changed m- like miraculously from like 2 to 3 to 20 to 25 with the same product.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things. The first piece is, as we were kind of talking about already, so many people are still leaning on, here's my modality, come work with me. So even just focusing on what we were sharing earlier around don't sell the plane ticket, sell the beach is going to support you in being able to stand out online. Now, I think we're also moving into a landscape where it's shifting from me to we. And so if you've been working with clients for a while, I really don't care about you. I care about the results that you've gotten your clients. I want to see the case studies of the woman that was in the exact position that I am in right now, who then went through your methodology and is now living the life that I desire, that has the relationship, that got the proposal, that, went from being 20 pounds overweight and bloated and heavy with brain fog to being at her perfect weight and feeling enough energy and vitality to actually like grab life by the balls and just full send it. So I think I don't I see a lot of people creating like educational content where it's convincing people of why this modality is important, why you should hire me. Here's how to incorporate it into your life. But realistically, you don't need to educate people. You need to position yourself as an authority by first and foremost being able to clearly state, I understand what problems you have, I understand what desires you have, and I've got the vehicle to get you here, and here's the transformation that you're going to receive. And then here's the proof, because my client Sally just did that exact thing that you want to do, and I can break down step by step how I got her there. So this isn't just like, let me take a screenshot of my testimonial and then post it up on my Instagram
Yeah.
stories. No, you look at that testimonial and you see, okay, cool. So when Lindsay came to me, she was struggling with picking out her ideal client avatar. And because of that, it felt like some content landed and other content just was like completely flopping. When we worked together, we went back to those three different archetypes that she was struggling to choose with because she didn't want to niche down. After we did this foundational work, we went in and shifted her messaging. And as we shifted her messaging, she began to show up as an authority online, which led to her making $1 million, right? And so then I'm creating this really clear journey that speaks to the pain points or the desires that my ideal client has in this now moment by showing an example of, hey, I've helped somebody in your exact position. Here's the things that we did, and here's where she is now. So this means this is where you could be if you come into my world. So that's just a very tangible thing that you can do. And if anybody's listening to this and they're like, okay, well, maybe I don't have that many testimonials yet, or gosh, they're in the 100,000 photos that I have on my phone, so it's going to take me forever to find them. What I would say is, if you're not already using an AI recorder on your calls that gets the transcripts of every single one of your calls, you need to start using that. You can use something. I use Fathom is the free app that I use that just plugs into my Zoom for all of my calls. And I will take, after about a month of one-to-one calls and group calls, all of those transcripts, put them into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, Chat, buddy,
You do
go
it
through
for
these transcripts,
Yes.
and tell me what is my zone of genius. What are the breakthroughs that my clients are having? And can you paint a picture of where my client started at the beginning of the call versus where they are now? And can you pull out anything that would be warranted as a testimonial? Because that's just going to give you a very structured and organized breakdown of what your zone of genius is and how you're helping your clients without you having to comb through and remember and like spend so much time digging into the details.
What a great way to leverage AI in that sense.
Yes.
And I've already done an episode on like AI as it pertains to like, is this helping or harming your healing? And really looking at it as this like support piece and what is its role and how do you prompt and how do you clarify like what it is and what's the difference between like echo chambering by yourself here and using it as this like very data driven support piece in your business. And I think that's such a beautiful example of this is what it's very good at and this is what it gives you. And it's not that you're posting that right up from it, but you're going, oh, wow, that's like 10 pieces of content right there. Now I record me talking about that, or I turn that into a carousel, or I allow that to like, feed into my sales page. But the aggregation of it, the dissection of it is something that like now I don't have to do. So I think connecting AI to those of us who are like, I'm the service provider. I don't do a lot of that. I'm very tech. Okay. So then you learn how to wield a piece of technology instead of being good at doing that yourself. And then you just get the results. And that's like pure nourishment that is like ready to be digested for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I would also, for anybody that does discovery calls or clarity calls, take those transcripts in because that's going to show you, especially if you put the ones in of like only people who have turned into clients. What were the biggest pain points that came up on these calls? What was the thing that really resonated with them that they were excited about? Because then again, that's your content creation. Then you know what topics to talk on that are going to attract more of those like clients.
Can we talk a little bit about what shifts you made to be in the like, I'm sharing this with a client that this is recorded in this way? Like, as someone who does discovery calls, I have found that the majority of like discovery, sales, that like first touch point, people have not enjoyed them being recorded. Do you discuss that you have the transcript attached? Is that something that, like, when you record the call, it announces it? How have you kind of shifted how you include that or how you talk about it so that it is just that like natural part of it? Or are you, aren't you? I would love to hear a little bit more about that as someone who's not currently doing that. I don't currently have the like Zoom AI taking notes, whereas a lot of
Mhm.
other facilitators that I've worked with or supported or collaborated with do have those things in place.
Yeah, so I think from a discovery call standpoint, first and foremost, Fathom AI, it shows up as like an additional user. So there's a lot of transparency there from the beginning that like there's an AI recorder in the call with us. Now, what we use that for, and I'm lucky because I've never had somebody in a call, and it might just be the nature of like my clients are facilitators. We're talking about business, and so it's not necessarily as deep, I would say, as the work that you're doing with your clients. They're not coming on and talking about all their trauma, all their capital T trauma, because there's
Yeah.
definitely lowercase t trauma in business. Um, so the way that I would frame it if I was in your position is, if we work together, the conversation that we're recording today helps me with your onboarding process so that I make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks and that when we start on our first call together, it's not like we're going back into these questions again. So that would be the positioning that I would lead to, which is true. I have support coaches on my team. If someone signs up for the High Ticket Coach Academy or my mastermind, well, if you're in my mastermind, you work with me directly. But if you're in the High Ticket Coach Academy, my support coaches have to watch that sales call back because I don't want them to be getting onto the first call and being like, so, what are your goals? What are the
Yeah.
things that you're struggling with? I want there to be a really luxurious experience for my clients where they don't feel like if they're getting passed on to someone else on my team, that there isn't a line of communication happening on the back end, which allows for that person to be fully up to speed with everything that this person has already shared with me.
And do you express to clients that you do feed those transcripts into large language models? Is that addressed at all to the people whose calls are recorded?
No, so we have a private GPT that I've created where it's not just like Chat GPT. It's my backend team GPT that I use personally. So I have a bunch of different private GPTs that I use for my team, for my sales team, for my coaches, that I've built out. Again, this is like graduation as
Yeah.
we were talking about.
I'm like, I
Um,
wanna know. I'm curious about
yeah,
those pieces, especially
yeah,
because
yeah,
that is something that's at the forefront of our industry of, like, I know Alex Hormozy's AI is already out. I know Gabby Bernstein's AI is already out. I feel like Gala Darling's coming with one where it's like it's them, where, like, you can engage with this AI model like you would ChatGPT, but it is only fed their materials and their backgrounds and what they're saying so that you can be working with these high level practitioners, but at the price point of only engaging with their AI model. So I'm like so curious how that's starting to like develop in the background. And that's a
yeah,
very interesting perspective of you're now like one of maybe like five different people who are like, oh, I utilize one of the like main AIs, but then I also do have kind of like I had one woman tell me she has one that's like off of the internet where it's like a whole closed system and this and that, where she uses that for her children, where she's like, I've fed it child A, child B, child C, and all of the information. And it like helps me navigate some of their health things or some of the things that we're talking. I'm like, how interesting each of
yeah.
us, how we're navigating this beautiful tool and how we're going to like work with it and not just like let it take over.
Yeah, and I think that working with it is the key there, right? Because there are obviously so many advances that are happening in the world of AI, and it's happening faster than I can even be saying this sentence right now. For me, I'm always looking at it as how can this make my life easier and more efficient and help me and my team be at 100% when we are showing up for our clients. And so I'm not one to at this point at least, we'll see how this episode dates. I'm not one to let AI replace me in every single aspect of my business. I do have a content coach, AI GPT, that I've created for my clients that has all of our messaging and positioning and trainings that we've got from, 10 years in this industry for them to be able to work through and flesh out different ideas just so that they're not spending 2+ hours on a
Yeah.
fucking social media post.
Yep.
Stick needles in my eyes, literally. But, you know, I have, I played with Delphi AI, which is the AI bot where you can actually train it with your voice. It's you talking to
Oh,
them. It's
yeah.
got your material. Like I put my whole book in there and I played with it for a little bit and I'm just like, you know, at this point, it's not an accurate representation of how I want my clients to work with me, even though all of my resources are in there. And I think the reason being is that AI is only as powerful as the person using it. So if somebody comes in as a beginner, having never used AI, to go and use my AI, phone call bot where you can talk to me on the phone, they're only going to get as much value
Yeah.
as they are able to prompt it. And so if they don't know how to prompt it, if they don't know how to use it to its best ability, then it's going to be a subpar, like poor man's version of myself. And to me, I've been so boutique in the way that I run my business, regardless of how many people I have in my world, that I reject sacrificing the client experience because, as you were saying earlier, so many people that are good at marketing and selling do not obsess over their client experience at the same level that they should be. And so I think that's the big piece for me is like use AI to help make your job more efficient, but remember that even if you're really good at AI, it doesn't mean that your clients are good at AI.
Yeah, what a good distinction, because especially with AI, the prompting is everything of, like,
My God.
how you set it up completely changes, and, like, that was an example that I gave a client where I was like, "Here are, like, the same 3 things, like, I'm asking for the same thing, but here's one where I give a ton of information of, like, I tell my chat to, like, assemble specific cabinets, the cabinet for the podcast where it's got all of these different people of, like, okay, we have a social media manager, and we have a this, and we have a that, and then forward." And I'm like, when you give it all of this information, what it produces for you, what kind of language you want it to be using, what's the intention of this, what's the purpose of this, what did we already work out that you want to make sure is not in there? And it's like without prompting like that, the result that you get is so different. And one can be super ineffective, and one's like, yes, that is exactly like what I would say, a little bit more polished and a little bit more. For me, I'm very long winded. So chat's always helping me get more straight to the point where I'm like, the long-winded is great when I have you in the liminal space and your eyes are closed and I'm in your energetic field. But when you're reading a social media post, I need to get there a little bit quicker. I
Yeah.
need it to be a little bit punchier. I don't need you scrolling 3 different slides in the carousel to get to the one that's like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm like, nope, I need that to be in the first few seconds because like that's where I find I lose people. Whereas my regular people who are reading everything are like, oh, yeah, this is the thing. And then they're all responding to slide 4, slide 7, slide 11. And I'm like, okay, let's get that
Yeah.
earlier and
Yeah.
earlier and earlier.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say on this for anybody who is newer to using AI, because I have this conversation with clients and they're like, oh shit, I didn't realize that. If you are working with AI and you have, like, for your podcast as an example, don't start a new project or a new chat every single time that you want to talk about your podcast. Have one running thread because it's going to remember the entire conversation versus you having to basically, like, it's almost like you're meeting an entirely new person and expecting them to give you the same depth of results or the same depth of an answer as, the last conversation you had with the thread a week ago.
Yes. Yeah. I have my popcorn one where I'm just like, these are random things where I'm just like, here are the ingredients in my refrigerator. Or like, what can I replace? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I need you to pretend like this is not at all what I'm ever talking about.
Right.
And then I
Yeah.
have one that's like my branded R&R. And then I have one that's the podcast because it's different. It's what I'm trying to get from this. And I'm spending all this time like getting really clear with chat on like, oh, this is a great response. Like, let's use this as like the model. And then this is getting closer. Or this is kind of closer. Or like, oh, I need a little bit more of this. And so I have them in those like different sections. And that's made such a difference where I'm not okay, please make a podcast summary that sounds like this and is in this voice and blah, blah. It already has all of that in there that it knows what I'm looking for, what type of language and who those ideal clients are, and that I want it punchy and that I don't want to waste 2 lines saying the same thing at the beginning of every summary. I want to go right into like, what is the most impactful piece? What is that like little teaser line that when they see only 5 or 7 words, they're wanting to listen to it? And it took me a little while to like, not only be able to prompt for that, but also figure that out of like seeing
Mhm.
that on and seeing the previews and looking at our stuff as the potential client versus as the one who created and did it and put it out there. Cause like I feel accomplished. I'm like, oh my God, I got a podcast episode up. It's edited. It's this and that. And then I'm happy about it. And then I'm like, okay, a couple days later, a couple weeks later, let's go back and look at it as the client, as the potential person listening, as the person digesting, and what can I see differently besides like, "Oh, I'm just really excited I did it and I accomplished it and it's great." Okay, now let's like be a little bit more particular and how can that client experience be the main focus? Because I think that is, and hopefully, fingers crossed, will forever be the differentiator in this space that like those of us who are truly here for what it is that we're expressing that we're here for in light work, in energy healing, in wellness, in personal development. We are really here to get the individual into a better space with themselves in whatever way that means. Of like, you feel better about your business, you feel better about your offering, you feel better about your clients, you feel better about your freedom, the like time spent doing this and that. Of like, we are really elevating the individual person. And it can be so easy to lose that in the mix of all of the pieces of becoming a service provider and having a business and making money and being able to like navigate the needs that your business fills for yourself and not forgetting like, okay, what is the purpose? What is the why? Where did we start this? Like, what is this really truly for?
Mhm. Yeah, the magic that invited you into this realm in the first place, especially the more seasoned business owners. I think it would be silly to say that someone has been completely immune to getting caught up in the performance, in the needing to, outperform where they were last year, or perhaps, lifestyle creep, their expenses have increased, so now they have to be increasing on the sales side of things. And, going back to what I was sharing, I think that this new landscape is a shift from me to we. And I see it with a lot of marketing as well too. I think in the last couple of years, a lot of people were able to just rely on like, here's what I've been able to do for myself. And that kind of like FOMO hype marketing worked for a while, but then people started getting into those individual spaces and being like, okay, cool, you did this for yourself, but have you been able to do this for any of your clients? No. And so shifting from like, I can show you that I've done this for my clients. And I think also world building as well. I've been running retreats since 2019. And I will say, like, every time that we do an in-person experience and I've got my videographer there, photographer there, and then we are documenting the experience along the way, people want to be in community. People want to see an actual 3D representation of the results that they desire beyond just a carousel, beyond just me talking about it, beyond listening to it on a podcast. And every time that we host an in-person experience, we have people reaching out and saying like, I saw that. I want to be a part of that. I want to be in someone's world where it goes beyond the screen because
Yeah.
community is so important.
Yeah. We're so connected and yet so separate from each other, more so than ever before. And I feel like the more connected we get through social media, through the internet, through like consistent access to anyone and everyone, like you can text, you can, is your, at some points, I have multiple conversations going with the same person. And I'm like, wow, we are more connected than we've ever been. It is instantaneous. And yet, when was the last time I saw you? When was the last time we were in true person? When was the last time that like my field co-regulated with your field and your eyes locked with my eyes? And like as we go up, we are also like separating in this way. And so I think it is so important for us to balance. And as someone who I've been very clear with like business coaches and leaders and even like my own like spiritual mentor. She's like, "You're so focused on doing services online." And I'm like, "Yes." And everybody always suggests, they're like, "Do in person, do in person, do in person." And I'm like, "But my in person is not just like a $35 at a yoga studio class." I'm like, "My energy and my ability and this gift is so special and unique and takes so much to like maintain and offer that like I don't work in person with people until they're in a program of mine." And then
Mhm.
when you are one of my private clients, then that includes a retreat, then that includes a ceremony, then that includes the like in-person work so that like I can enjoy it and benefit as much as the individual client and not burn myself out on these like $35 sound baths to just get your name out there. I'm like, those are not even my ideal clients 99.9% of the time. So, like, as much as some people don't understand that, being able to connect with, like, this is really true and real for me, and finding those people who can take those pieces and help me synthesize and create the models that really work, that feed the systems that support not just a successful business, because I think so many of us are getting to that point. Success is not just the financial success, it's how do you wanna operate? How do you wanna work? What's the build your business to the individual, not contort the self to a successful, quote, unquote, "financially successful business."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm
I'm the same
the same.
exact way. Like, there's so many people who want to throw these massive events where it's 500 people, 1,000 people. I'm like, I'll speak on your stage there, but there's no
Yeah,
chance that I am gonna be the one putting on that caliber of an event for a single day because I mean, honestly, I don't believe in it. I don't believe that you can have a sustained shift in
mhm,
identity
yes,
from a couple hours in a room. And you might experience, like, I always say it's like the difference between a deep therapeutic breathwork journey and doing breathwork every single day. The deep therapeutic breathwork journey is going to crack something open inside of you and it's going to lead to a breakthrough, a shift, a clearing. But just going and doing one deep therapeutic breathwork journey every quarter, every 6 months, like, you're gonna be the same exact fucking person going through the same exact results and the same exact patterns if you don't have something to help you regulate on a consistent basis. So I do not do the single day events. My events are at a minimum 4 or 5 days long and usually around the week-long period with clients that I've been working with for 3 to 6 months or longer. And it's no wonder that the shifts that come from that are absolutely phenomenal and life-changing for them because we're doing the deeper work and we're prepping. And even on a business level, we're spending more time together, which allows for us to go deeper and not have this like introductory period of like, let's break the ice, let's get people into their bodies. It's like my clients are already fucking in their bodies because
right?
we just spent 6 months going there. So we can spend this time together, really like mapping out the next plan and letting this be a container for the transformation to either completely land from what we've done or to be the lily pad and or the launch pad into that next season for them. And I think that, like you were saying, it's one of those things where I believe that we think that there's a lot of rules in the or not in the breathwork industry, but in the coaching industry and in the business space in general. I think, I was having this conversation with a client the other day. She's like, I just really dropped the ball on my Black Friday sale and I'm just feeling really overwhelmed. And I'm like, babe, Black Friday, it's a construct. Like, you can do a holiday sale the week later. You can stretch out your Black Friday special for as long as you fucking want because someone decided like Black Friday between this week and this week is the time to do it. But like, that's just a rule that you can either subscribe to or unsubscribe to. And I think that that is for any aspect of business. Like, you don't have to be an industry leader because you put on 500-person events. You can be an industry leader and have a very intimate field of clients that you work with and choose to only work with people in an in-person setting when their system's ready for it. And it's also going to pour back into you in the same way that it pours into them.
And there's a difference between that being something that's really important to you, like me, and that being something that, like, isn't that big of a thing for you. And you're like, no, I get so hyped up from the 500 people in one room hearing these like little, like, oh shit. And like they go home and it starts to make them think. And like that is the offering. But it is that right and true and aligned for me versus like you're saying that rule of like, oh, am I just now this many years into my business, this far dollar amount into my business? Oh, I've already done this. The next step is that thing. But if that's not aligned for you, it doesn't matter how much we're like outputting. If it's like, oh, that doesn't feel right. It's not that you can't build it successfully. I'm sure we've both seen so many clients who are making money in businesses that, like, don't feel enriching to them, and, like, how long will you be able to sustain that? At what point is that gonna burn you out? And are you gonna have to burn the entire thing to the ground and build something else? Are you going to Is that gonna be the natural next step to, "Oh, I was doing this for a while, but this is actually my soul's blueprint," and so balancing what is familiar in our industry and what are other people doing and not getting left behind by big things like automations and AI and strategy and funnels, but also like staying very true to the self. Like I've done a Black Friday deal once or twice. And like for me, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Like I don't believe in Black Friday. Like I'm super anti-capitalistic. So I'm like, the pressure to put out a Black Friday offer just because a lot of people are spending money at this time. I'm like, that feels incongruent with like who I am as a practitioner. So getting bought up into that, like the year I had an ads team, an ads firm, they were like, we're gonna do this whole big Black Friday thing. And we did. And like it was not well received because my clients are like, wait, what the fuck? Like I'm so confused, and I'm like, a ton of them saw it, but, like, that's not it's just not in alignment, so it really did look like, "Oh, I hired, oh, I outsourced, oh, is that even me?" I mean, I remember messaging a coach one time because I saw these, like, little ads that went up for her brand, and it didn't look like her, and it wasn't in her regular language, and it wasn't in her regular font, and I was like, "Is this you, or are you getting scammed?" And she was like, "Oh, no, that's me, like, I'm trying out a new company, I'm trying out a new whatever," and I'm like, these things are so important when, like, you yourself are the brand and the business and the offering and, like, running everything through that, not putting our heads in the sand and denying all of these other pieces, but, like, there is no rule book that we can kinda check what we're doing and make sure we're checking off the boxes of, like, "Okay, I have to do these 5 things," or, "I can't do these 10 things," going, but is that aligned and right and true for me? And then how do I do that in the best way possible in a way that's like really supported and works really well and is friendly to the people that I'm ideally calling in?
Yeah, absolutely. Mic drop.
Mm, what a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for allowing me to like get so specific and get so particular. And I think just having people be able to hear those like riffs in the story, even that one example of you talking about me and you and what we've talked about, and how I can see someone who struggled with a carousel or a post going, I could do that. Like, I could do that. I could take the story of what's gone on in my client call and not include their name and talk through it in that way and paint that picture and shift from marketing to storytelling and using the evocative nature of me telling this story of like what happened, even just in a podcast conversation, in my sessions, in my, potential conversation with a potential client sitting next to them at the airport can turn into a vehicle with which someone could really understand the beach and not the plane ticket. So, thank you so much for being here, Ava. I'd love to give you some time to share with people what you've got going on. I know you mentioned both of your offers are evergreen, so I share with people how they take that next step with you. And then, of course, everybody will include all of these links in the show notes for you guys to jump right on over.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a great conversation. I love going down these rabbit holes. So, as I mentioned, the Academy of Breath is my 12-week breathwork and meditation certification program. This is really for you if you are an existing facilitator and wanting to incorporate more somatic practices such as breathwork into your core modalities, just to amplify everything that you're doing. I think this works really, really well, especially if you are more on the mindset side of things, if you're a body worker, movement instructor, bringing breath work in. And then obviously, if you're an energy healer working with somatics already, breath is just, in my opinion, the most profound vehicle that we have for sustained transformation. The Academy of Breath is it's academyofbreath.org. We also have an Instagram page at Academy of Breath. And then if you are a facilitator really looking for that blend of the strategy with the spiritual and being able to have these foundational pieces built out for you so you can create a more sustainable business model that works in 2025 and 2026 and is not just the outdated model of 2020 and 2022. The High Ticket Coach Academy is really like my signature flagship offer. It's a 4-month business coaching container that has a hybrid model of asynchronous learning where we've got an entire business portal. You get one-to-one support, group support. We do 4 calls a week. So you will be so fucking supported. Like your nervous system will be so held within this container. And uniquely, we also offer a results guarantee because to me, integrity is one of the flagship values of my own operating system. And so I want every single facilitator to know that this is a space where you will get results and you've got ride or dies in your corner until you start getting results. And so High Ticket Coach Academy and Academy of Breath are the 2 main ways to work with me. And then other than that, you can follow me on Instagram at Ava Johanna.
Thank you so much, Ava. This was not only nourishing and enriching for me, but I'm really excited for people to be like, this was the thing that changed. And there's so many little pockets and so many different directions at so many different levels. And being able to kind of take all of your awareness and all of your background and there's something for everybody in this conversation at whatever level in business you're at, whatever level of success, and also whatever like stuck point. I like to describe those as the Roomba points where you're just like banging up against the wall, being like, I just want to do my job and I'm stuck right here. That I think several of these little pockets of conversation can get someone unstuck from that area. And now they know those next steps that they can take with you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.